Welcome to our Sunday Truth Talk. My name is Jona Bryndis. I'm a professional energy therapist and energy healer and living human true self radio on Sunday mornings. I invite you to come here and talk to me about things in our daily lives that as empaths, as energetically sensitives, are important to us and that possibly affect us on levels that we are not fully aware. So today I want to talk to you about something that has been coming up a lot here recently. And if you have watched the forecast for 2020 and beyond, also last Sunday we talked about 2020, then you already know that a lot of what is ahead of us here in those next 10 years has to do with collective healing, okay? And I want to take this apart with you today, and I want to illuminate these different aspects of this and why this is even important to us, how this could possibly affect us. And for this purpose, I want you guys to let me know what country you are from. Now, maybe not the country that you currently live in if you've moved a lot, but the country that you're from, the tribe that you're from, if you know which one that is. If you don't know, say because you adopted or because you have, so many different genetic inheritances, really what your sort of tribe of origin is. I do recommend these ancestry genetic tests to find out what your lineage is, at least here on your 3D level, on your genetic level. As far as the etheric lineage is concerned, your karmic aspects, your karmic family, your karmic tribe, this can be something different again, but it often correlates. So there is a reason why we were born into a certain collective at a certain time. There's also a reason why we move to certain countries, or why we leave our home country, why we feel drawn to certain countries or certain tribes, certain cultures and so forth. Have you guys noticed this, that there are attractions that you might feel in the sort of on a deep level, where you feel like you've always been attracted to Japanese culture or to Native American culture or to Spanish culture? I'm just pulling this out of thin air. And I apologize for the background noises here. Obviously, there's a collective around me, so there's a reason why I live in an urban environment, and I am aware of this. So clearing those karmic collective ties is a subject that we all encounter on our personal journey, in our personal healing and awakening journey here as soul selves on this 3D level. Sooner or later, we all have this need to look at different aspects of this. There are different layers, different hierarchies. Yeah, you felt this. There are different hierarchies of that. So we have, of course, our immediate family. We have these immediate aspects of sociology and psychology that we are influenced by, our parents, our siblings, our family constellation. That is one aspect of this. But then we have the neighborhood, the things that we identify ourselves with, the zip code, the village, the sort of what our tribe is used to be doing, the values that come with this, the habits and the traditions and so forth. Often we're not even aware of this. We're talking about karmic collective ties here today, and I was just going through the layers of karmic or etheric ties that we all experience. First on our family level, our parents, our siblings, our family constellation, then our neighborhood, our zip code, our immediate village, tribe, so to speak, and then maybe the city or the state that we live in, and then the country that we live in, the nation that we see ourselves connected to, and then we have the overall connection here to humanity. And this is something we are all feeling more and more now, that we are all connected. And there are some scientific things that also help with this understanding, namely, for instance, epigenetics, right? How things actually inherit throughout the planet without people being in direct contact with another. We know today that plants communicate with another throughout the whole entire planet. We know that there are things that if a species learns this on one corner of the planet, that it somehow transfers to individuals on the other side of the planet without any kind of connection, if it is beneficial. And this whole entire healing of our karmic ties, of these things that we carry with us, be it in our genetic inheritance through our genetic lineage or our etheric lineage, which I will illuminate here a little in a little bit. We carry things in us that do not seem to come from either this life or this existence, all right, or that we've never experienced before, these resonances. And they can be quite strong. For many people, it isn't really until they do a little bit of searching there, a little bit of communicating, a little bit of research. As I mentioned earlier, a DNA test, besides the privacy issues with that, but can be very illuminating. After all these years of doing karmic resolution work with myself, when I did this DNA test about 5-6 years ago, it brought a whole new level of understanding of some of the things that I carry within me. But when we look at, and the reason why we want to look at these things, just how it was in my own case, is not to just gain more knowledge or to prove things or to justify things. It can be a very, very intimate reason, and that is why, for instance, we have recurring dreams, feel these resonances also with unexplainable dark things, all right, in us, things that have nothing to do with what we've experienced in our lives or this lifetime. And so I want to go through some of these hierarchies here with you. Then I want to illuminate the gaslighting that we all experience here through this karmic collective human unconscious, all right? So these things that influence our sense of self and how they can actually be in the way, how they can block this individuation as a soul self that we are feeling called to. We all want to have this individual sense of self, but then we also feel these ties to things that are beyond our control, such as gender, that's a first one, but also race, color, tradition, religion, and so forth. So in the second half of this truth talk today, I would love to talk to you about your personal stuff, your personal heritage, etherically, karmically, collectively. And for that purpose, I need you to let me know what country of origin, what tribe you are from. All right, so this can illuminate some of the specifics of your inheritance energetically. So not just in the seen, but also in the unseen. And then I want to go through some of these most typical gaslighting, mind control, matrix techniques that we are all exposed to, and give you a few tips how you can liberate yourself from this. Obviously, it is the searching for truth, the discerning truth that is instrumental here. And if you are an empath, if you are energetically sensitive, then you will already have a lot of these instruments actively working in you, but you might not know how to use them correctly. So let's go through the hierarchy of these karmic ties. All right, so I've already mentioned the ones that relate to our physical experience here, the family that we're born into, the socioeconomical circumstances, our race, and so forth, and our gender. This is the most 3D level on which we experience ourselves, and obviously the one that most people refer to when they refer to issues or blocks or trauma. We also have something like a karmic collective trauma, which is something that has to do with this genetic inheritance, the tribe of origin. We know this now through genetics, that there is a different memory in our, or stored in our genes, not in the DNA per se, but in the mitochondrial DNA. That is the DNA that is found in those mitochondria. This is where our energy, where our life force is being regulated throughout the female lineage. So they can actually now trace back genetic material all the way to the first humans that existed on this planet. And we also know through research with Holocaust victims that a trauma experienced as individual and as sort of group, soul group, or tribal group, that this is also being inherited. Okay, so not just, our eye color, race, gender, and so forth, but also something like trauma. So this is very important to understand here in regards to the hierarchies of what influences us, because on this physical, emotional, mental level, we can see, what influences us, what what determines our sense of self, as far as like the 3D-ness of our being, the ego awareness is concerned. But then on an energetic level, there are many unseen hierarchies that we cannot necessarily connect with. And this is something that needs to be put into account here in these next years, because as we are growing more and more together here on this tiny planet, all right, it appears smaller and smaller every decade. Yes, we connect with another more and more. We are also in need of resolving some of these collective issues between our tribes. So this is one of the reasons why 2020 and the time that is coming after 2020 is so transformational, because we are actually now entering in a time where we are able to resolve these collective issues. But it depends on us individuals to liberate ourselves one soul at a time, in order to reach this critical mass, that as human species, that we all here recognize that we are in the same boat, and that we also have a human collective inheritance, all right, on this outer soul level. So the information for that is carried in your etheric guides, in your chakra fields, and it's something that you can learn through energy work and energy training. So that just comes with more energy awareness. The more you're able to access these unseen, these energetic levels of your being, the more information you will receive there. But you can also do this, just by contemplating, or like sort of asking questions, and these ancestry tests and so forth. They can already trigger things in you. All right. So these are the different kinds of inheritances karmically, okay? We can also, of course, have karmic ties and binds to individual people, to individual groups, and this is also carried in our etheric And when we do energy clearings on people, then that is for most people the reason why they come to us in the first place, because they cannot access this themselves, but they feel the ties there. There can also be ties to astral stuff, to energies and entities that are not benign. All right, all these things are carried in our energy signature, guys, and can be remedied, okay, with someone who's trained to do this. But as an individual here, the first stage of even discovering that there is something like an influence there is to recognize all these different layers of gaslighting, all these different layers of how our thinking, our values, our beliefs, even if we think that we are independent, how they are influenced by our current culture. And this gaslighting aspect is a word that comes from narcissistic abuse syndrome. All right, and something that many of us experience also without a narcissist in their lives. However, though, part of our collective development right now is that we see a lot of this narcissistic, unhealthy ego emerge, and therefore I found it appropriate to compare what we experience here on this collective level with something that could resemble narcissistic abuse. So our whole entire collective right now is literally, going through these phases of really unhealthy individualism and exploitative grandiosity and celebrating the selfishness, the ego self. All right, and this is why, in my view, as an energy healer, we need to look at gaslighting and mind control techniques. So those of you who work with me, you know this, and there's a bunch of YouTube videos, explainer videos to this, because I do a lot of narcissist empath healing education and so forth. Thank you for your hearts, by the way. If you want to get this information, then please sign up for my email list. This is how I distribute these infographics. So you see something on your screen here at Facebook that you probably can't read, but I'm going to go through this with you. We want to explore the different layers of mind control and gaslighting that are happening through our collective, through the matrix, if you will. So I often refer to the Matrix movies here, the first 30 minutes actually of part number 1, where this is kind of accurately displayed. There's something like the question, do we actually live in reality? Are we actually awake? And when you do a little bit of internalization and a little bit of contemplation, meditation and so forth, you find out, well, this whole thing about reality is relative, all right? But and what they showed really well in the Matrix movie is that there is something like a pivotal point in our life, and that is sort of what they call the red pill, taking the red pill here in this more spiritual or mindfulness lingo. We call this awakening. So when we awaken to something, it's like we are suddenly beginning to see the larger context of things. It's not that it was false what we saw before, it's just we awaken to the fact that there are more realities existing at the same time. And you can hear this in the lingo, people talk about 3D, 5D and so forth. What does this even mean? This refers to the different vibrational dimensions that we can now begin to feel. We can tell that there are different vibrational realities existing at the same time. So some people call this the multidimensionality of being. It doesn't matter how you actually call this. The point is that we now know through quantum physics and all this, that there is more than just what we perceive. And if we have no spiritual context with this, we might believe that this is all just a virtual reality like it is in computer simulation. But as energy workers, we know that that is not the case. There are different realities, and it depends on our energetic state, on our vibe, okay, where our vibrational focus is and where our energy is, how many layers of this we can actually perceive and work with. And what I so often refer to as just learning how to discern truth, or truth training, as I called it in the forecast for 2020, is to learn to feel the differences here and to accept that how things appear to us at a given moment might not be true, even though they or it appears as real. And so we learn that there are many different realities, that pretty much everything appears as real, but that not everything is necessarily true. And whether or not there's the right or the wrong truth, okay, this question disappears when we go quantum. When we go into the non-linearity of things, we recognize how things are entangled with another. So a very good example for this is our synchronicities, for instance, and all these things that we are constantly experiencing in our life, where we think of somebody and then all of a sudden they call us, or there's so much more than we can see just on through our five senses, through the 3D perception. And one of the most mind-boggling things for us is that how we see things literally changes with the emotional state that we are in. And in energy work, we go a step further. This can actually be measured. This can be calibrated, all right, where our vibrational frequency is at a given moment. And what we learn from this is that it's not always as simple as saying, yeah, when my emotions are low, then I'm more pessimistic. When I feel high, when I have a good day, then I'm optimistic. Obviously, that's how our ego perceives it, but this is also the deception of the ego, because it then naturally concludes that all that is needed to feel good about myself is to keep myself high. And this is where obviously the seeking pleasure, and also the numbing and so forth, the refusal to accept pain as part of our learning experience comes from. So our ego is not a very good help here. And when we look at mind control and gaslighting coming through the collective matrix, okay, we have to keep this in mind, because guys, you don't have to be a demon, okay, to manipulate humans. All you really got to do is to play onto people's ego, all right, to pull them into their own inner darkness, to lower their vibes to a point where they can no longer remember that they have something like a soul or something like a heart. And that coerces them into giving up this autonomy, giving up this integrity, giving up this sovereignty of our soul self. And this is here the part that is being addressed in these years to come, and why we experience this, or at least the people that work with energy, as such a big transformation process, because we are beginning to see through this, and we're beginning to see the truth of this. All right, so here a quick trigger warning. I want to go through these collective gaslighting techniques that here in this infographic come from narcissistic gaslighting, but they apply for us on this collective level as well. Let me first define what gaslighting is. The general characteristics of gaslighting is that it's a predatory form of mental, verbal, emotional, and energetic manipulation, abuse or control through covertly implanting or making a person believe that's their reality, and in form of like cognitive dissonances, doubting themselves, okay, doubting their own selves, so a sense of selves in a person. It coerces the person into questioning their own reality, their own security, their own emotions, their own image, all right, and basically prevents, it's like putting a wedge into a person's energy, prevents the person from self-regulating, from self-healing, all right. So basically any kind of manipulation and mind control from an energetic point of view disrupts the person's energy flow and therefore lowers their energetic integrity, their energy vibe. And as that happens, this person's perception of reality changes into a more pessimistic, into a more doom and gloom, into a more fearful, and this is the main damage that is being done, into a powerless state, into believing that I don't have any power, that no matter what I do, it doesn't matter, I can't do anything. And this is the state when we give up our power. And this is an easy fodder, really, be it for astral entities or the powers to be, because now we can be steered into falsehood. Now we can be manipulated into believing in things. We can be conned, we can be seduced, we can even be driven to do things to others without us even realizing that we are violating our own integrity, that we are allowing others in, that we're not enacting our own boundaries anymore without even realizing this. Okay, and in psychology, there are terms for this, like trauma bonding and so forth. This is a real form of abuse, guys. All right, so this is why so many people are feeling enraged by this collective gaslighting. But what you guys mistake here is that there is no particular force to externalize this and to go against it and to blame somebody for this. Okay, it's a sign that you're still in it. All right, so let's go through this real quick. These 10 different or most common gaslighting and mind control techniques, and then we can talk real quick about what we can do. And then I would like to ask you guys what tribe, what heritage you are from, to tell you the variation of your specific karmic inheritance. All right. So the first and most common technique is to create a constant roller coaster, a constant drama, to make everything unstable in a person's life, to make things unpredictable, constantly shattering the sense of security and the worldview. We see this right now through our media. Okay, this is you can call this fake news if you will, but it isn't fake because it's what people want, okay? So don't blame the news stations for it, because the reason why they're doing it is because people want it. It sells. And why does it sell? Because this drama, all right, allows a person, the ego of the person, the unhealthy or unhealed ego, to distract from themselves for as long as it can stay busy with other people's dramas, with dramas across the globe, okay, that are terrible, and things are terrible for our environment, and politics are terrible, and people are terrible, and so forth. All right, the person is pulled into this juice, okay, that comes out of, oh my God, there is a drama, okay? So roller coasters, there's an attraction there for our ego, and our ego gets seduced into this through media. Number 2, disproportionate reactivity, overreacting, rage beasting. Those are terms from narcissistic abuse. But how does this apply to us? We see political leaders right now overreacting, the tweet storming, or storming off from a meeting, where diplomacy and things like this are no longer things that we even consider anymore. Okay, we see shootings, we see random displays of rage. Okay, this is the rage beasting. Okay, that keeps our ego trapped in mind control, mind based cognitive dissonances, about ourselves, about our security. Okay, then number 3, fake support, engulfing us into thinking we need certain, again, this can be persons, this can be your football team, this can be your tribe, this can be your government, or your banking system, okay, whatever. But it's in engulfing, the retirement system and the health insurance system is very good examples for this, into a fake security, all right, to tell you, oh, and we have the solution for this, we or us, or if you're just part of this, all right, then you can survive all this. We give you this false sense of security, very, very seductive or seductive for the ego, because we're already in this state of uncertainty. Then number 4, the elevate and dump. Okay, this is something that we are experiencing through social media really well. Social media has given all of us, but especially those with the strong narcissistic tendencies, a worldwide stage, the ability to project this out into the world, all right, and selfies and so forth, these phenomena, they all have to do with this seduction into feeling elevated, feeling special. And then, of course, on other levels of our collective, you have this the concept of the chosen ones. Okay, so we're much better, even spiritual superiority and so forth plays into this only, and this is the where the abuse happens, only to show you how little power you have and how easily you could get thrown out of this ivory tower. Then we have number 5, denial, delusion, narratives, misuse of information. I mean, I don't even need to explain this, guys. This is the internet itself, okay? Only 5% of all information in the internet or on the internet is true. Only 5%, guys. All right, I talked about everything is backward. You almost have a higher chance of finding truth if you just assume that it's the opposite. Just on a side note here. And number 6, minimizing, denigrating, degrading, devaluing, crazy making. All right, this is something that we often experience in our relationships, but this also happens on a collective level. This can happen through minority abuse, through degrading other countries, other cultures, elevating yourself, but it can also come through really making specific things or calling them as stupid or naive or as crazy. Okay, so what are some of the things that our collective here regards as crazy right now? The things that are truly crazy, it doesn't even mention it. It still promotes it. Okay, things such as how our advertisement plays directly on this, how we are being coerced and taking medication, or even drugs, how we're being coerced, and all these things that are not even true. All right, nobody talks about those. But what are some of the things that are really judgmental here, where we get thrown into this, like, oh my God, I'm not good enough. All right, that is the social values that portray perfectionism and idealization, where we have to be super moms and super rich and super successful, and we have to be spiritual, and we have to be vegan, and we have to do meditation every day, and we have to do yoga and whatnot. So the idealization, okay, that we are perceiving through our social values right now is actually something that denigrates us, okay? Because it is not possible to operate on all these levels of existence in this sort of idealized, fictional perfectionism. And this is where a lot of you guys get pulled in to without even realizing this, all right? So it is then your own critical inner voice, that destroys you and that takes away your power. Okay, so all I got to do is present a picture perfect, Miss Goody Two Shoes, and that, makes you feel bad about yourself. Number 7, isolating, triangulating, and manipulating your environment. Okay, telling you that people who blank, are bad people, or that stereotypes. All men are this, or all women are this, or things like that. Even this whole talk about narcissism can create some of this. But let's not forget that it is, every time when we think we have to, deny our inheritance, when we feel like we don't belong to the social group that we're originally from, we don't belong to our family, that those things are all isolating us from our original support group, and they can make us feel very lonely. On a more spiritual level, the mind control is more like making fun of spiritual people, calling it woo-woo and so forth, calling it fringe dweller, and making you the person that does feel spiritual, that does see things or that does believe things, that makes you feel isolated and makes you sort of moving away from other people because you're now feeling that they're hostile. But this also happens on other levels here. I can see this as a mom with kids in schools and so forth, where it starts at a very, very early stage, where the kids are not allowed to touch each other anymore, where, there's the cliques and so forth that are formed in kindergarten, really, where the kids are being told that, belonging to this or to this group is bad for them. This isolates us, and this also obviously seduces us into trying to be somebody that we are not. Okay, peer pressure and so forth. All right. Number 8, narrowing our options and escape routes. Okay, this has something to do on a social level here with, injecting us with the idea that we need to have a retirement fund. We need to have this, we need to have this, we need to have health insurance, we need to have this, we need to pay taxes, we need to do all these things. And if we don't, all right, then we're doomed. All right, there's other examples. I'm hasting through this here. Number 9, hiding, secrecy, cover-ups. Well, this is what gave power, or not power, but what created all this conspiracy theory seeking in us. And remember, these cover-ups, they're real, and there's a lot of control of information, a lot of locking up of information, and also falsifying of information. This is not a secret anymore, okay? But this fixation on trying to uncover this, all right, and this happens on relationships as well as on the collective level, can bind us to it. It controls our mind as well. It's a seduction for the ego as well. All right, so yes, there is a lot of cover-up. Yes, there is a lot of gaslighting. Yes, there is a lot of secrecy. Yes, but if you are in a place where you can connect with your heart and where you can feel truth, you no longer need to prove that. You already know that most of what is being displayed here on this collective level is nothing but a huge big ego show, pulling you into feeling bad about yourself and taking your power away and your energetic integrity. The last most common gaslighting mind control technique is blame shifting, guilt tripping, and scapegoating, cop-outs. This is something that we all get pulled in here through the other aspects above. Yeah, if we are not complying with these things, well then it's our own fault. And even a New Age spirituality brings in false information here. There is some truth in when we say that we determine our manifestations and that there's a reason for all this, but it doesn't mean that it's our fault and that we have to sort of endure this, that we have to suck this up. On the contrary, so the blame shifting and the guilt tripping is something that puts us into this toxic passivity state where we endure things, or we suck up things, and where we almost try to find some payoff in sacrifice and hardship and suffering. All right, this is a very big one here. I see this a lot, guys, that people believe that there is honor in suffering, and also, of course, aspects of specialness through this particular suffrage, that we have on this personal and also collective level. So we got to be careful here. These were all examples of how we are being mind controlled and gaslighted, and this is the part here that is tricky, that we can only really acknowledge when we are willing, when we have the sincere desire to stay in truth. And that is, these mind control techniques, they play into our ego, guys. They make us do things, all right? And it is our job to wake up. It is our job to pay attention to these things. It's our job to look at our own ego, at our own payoffs, at our own specialness, at how we denigrate, how we elevate, how we blame shift, how we do all these things without even being aware of, but most and foremost, how we give away our power, and how we are basically, offering ourselves through our passivity, to become part of this. And so we all are part of the gaslighting as well, guys. Any one of us here who suffers from not feeling good enough, from going into this extreme sort of self-doubt and inner negativity, all right, is a victim and also a perpetrator simultaneously. Is very hard to see, all right, and this requires a lot of inner healing work to really find the way through this. But I wanted to use the opportunity to bring this out here in the open. Now, I would like to use the remaining time to actually talk to you about your personal aspects here of collective karma and tribal aspects that you might want to look at that can help you to unlock this within yourself. So besides, of course, healing our resolved, unhealed wounds and, our unhealthy ego, there are some things that come in through our tribal inheritance that we might not have access to, all right? And so let me know, guys, where you are from. Give me a second here. I need to change my view on Facebook because I can't really see your guys' comments right now. Okay, you are from India and you're seeing a lot of religion-based gaslighting today. Yeah, so and you live in the United States. I take it, I happen to know who you are, Shri. So you come from India and you live here in the United States, and therefore you can see things such as religion-based gaslighting more clearly. All right, what are some of these things that you are seeing there? As somebody who comes from a different religious and different social value background. Yes, so you live amongst a lot of Polish, Swiss, and German people. Or this is oh no, this is somebody else. Sorry, Glow. Sorry, I'll get to you here in a second. So you see tribalism. Okay, so tribalism is something that we all carry through our tribal inheritance. Okay, so it's the identification with where we are from, but there is a healthy connection to that, and then there is an unhealthy connection of that. And the unhealthy connection is, of course, when it goes beyond when it goes beyond our own personal values, and when we externalize our powers to the side. It's very beautiful to see in sports events, where people take on, sort of the identity of one team, and then they fight, the other team to the bone. Is that what you mean with tribalism? This going against other tribes? You clearly seeing how religion is being used to divide. Yeah. How do you see this? As someone from India, obviously you come from a collective that has a strong awareness of caste, strong awareness of sort of leveling up. You also bring in a natural understanding of a reincarnation. All right, this is part of your culture, and also some of the Eastern traditions, such as meditation, such as ceremonies and so forth, that are not necessarily religious, but that are part of daily life. But you also bring in the need to liberate yourself from the strong social caste awareness, especially as a woman. Yes, so you are literally recognizing this. Okay, yeah. And this is often the case for me as well. I've lived in many different countries, and when we come from a different country or from the outside into a collective, then it's often more obvious for us. So coming, these two things that are colliding within you as a woman from India, living in the United States, are obvious. They have to do with the liberation from gender-specific and caste-specific stereotypes. All right. So, Glo, you come from a Polish Swiss German. So you come from this Middle European German tribe that has sort of contributed a lot here to this Christian Christian values in our Western society. Okay, so for you, it depends on what country you're originally from, because there's a huge difference between the Polish collective, the Swiss collective, and the German collective. Yeah, guys, be precise here. Let me know exactly what tribe you're from. Lisa, you have Scottish Irish heritage, but you live in Spain. Okay, so the Scottish Irish has a collective. Irish and Scottish is different again here, but I take it that you referring to this a sort of Highlander type of minority within sort of the British Empire, has a strong need to liberate, has a strong need for freedom, religious freedom, also economic freedom. So there, every person that has Scottish blood in them, they have this sort of dormant freedom fighter in them, and often also a lot of pain in regards to this. So especially when you're from the Irish tribe, okay, there's a lot of stored pain still very, very active in Irish people, in their genes. So it takes about 7 generations to transcend this on an energetic level. And so this is like 250 years roughly. Yeah, if you have left your tribe of origin in this lifetime, then you still have the full impact, even though you're not exposed to it anymore. But even if it was your parents or your grandparents or your great grandparents that came from this country, they're still carrying a lot of this pain and a lot of this tribal conflict that they were from in their own energetic and genetic makeup. Yeah, so here, Sandy, same thing for you. Your grandparents on your mother's side from Scotland. And it's, of course, when we have these mixtures, and that's what's so interesting about the United States, Canada, and Australia, where a lot of us have this really, really multicultural tribal background, all right, where these things combine. But then there is also an energy about the place that you live. Ron, English Irish with a dash of tiger's blood, Ron, and you live in the U.S. Okay, so yes, all of you guys that have this British. Again, here, please differentiate between British and Irish, because there's a huge difference. Okay, living in the United States. Okay, you brought this need for liberation. Okay, so your ancestors came here because they wanted two things. They wanted to liberate themselves from the confines of their homeland, but at the same time also build a new future for themselves, seek fortune. Okay, and so this part can be very dominating for us, that we feel this inside of us, but we can't really put a finger on. That's why this is so strong. Yes, if it's the British one, the British are, we still live in the era of the U.S. Anglo society here in the West. So these are the two big tribes dominating our Western world. Originating obviously in the German, Scandinavian, and Anglo-Saxon tribes mixed with the Roman and the Mediterranean tribes. Okay, so if you guys come from English heritage, the DNA testing can actually show you a little more, because in England you had the Vikings that had a strong impact there on the tribal inheritance, and you also had the German tribes. So you had, and then you have the original Celtic tribes there, which are expressed most in the Scottish and some of the Irish. But the Irish has a very strong Viking impact. So does the west coast of the British Isles, and the east coast has more of a continental influx. Nashet, you are either Dutch or Belgian. Again, here amongst those Middle European tribes, a very specific karmic inheritance for Belgium and Netherlands. It has a merchant and trade history, also piracy history. So you'll find a lot of business making. The need for profit, the need for communication, and for intercommunication, exploring, and so forth in your culture. So, Sandy, it's interesting. You live in South Africa, which has a very strong British and, of course, African conglomeration. But you're from Scotland originally, Isle of Man. Mm-hmm. Yes, the liberation of the divine feminine. So the Celtic and the Scandinavian, the Viking tribes, they have a very strong sense for the liberation of the feminine. I'm like pretty much 100% inbred between Viking and German tribes, okay, and British, and so my entire genetic material is Scandinavian and British, Celtic, and these cultures, they have this strong, well, we take it for granted, really, the liberation of the divine feminine, and they bring in a strong impact here on our spiritual culture. So you find a lot of women coming from those tribes, like myself, talking publicly and becoming healers and so forth, because for us it's already farther progressed, this liberation, and it's easier for us to see this as reality because our culture promotes this a little more than other cultures. So then the British, for instance, there's a huge difference there between Irish or between Scottish and British. And but it's very interesting for you because you've chosen to live in South Africa, and now you're moving to South America. So you are literally an explorer here, by submerging your own karma in or with other tribal karmas. So South America, again, a completely different nature than the African karma. The African karma obviously is about, the tribe, the tribalism in its original state. Okay, learning how to live together, learning how to make things work together, and cherishing life and life force altogether. The South American has a lot of traditions that are also not very favorable for life forms. So there's a lot of karma there in regards to human sacrifice and so forth. I mean, most of our tribes have that, and have had that at some point. But there's a lot of violence in South America that still needs to be transcended. Okay, there's issues with respecting the soul in every person. Okay, yeah, Svetlana, the Caribbean. Caribbean, East Indian, African heritage, and Spanish. Yes, very interesting as well, the Caribbean, because it has these French, British, African roots coming together here, very torn apart, very schismatic, and in that sense, very difficult for your collective, and as an individual from this collective, you carry parts of this to find yourself in there. Yeah, so it's these collectives that are very schismatic. Okay, they bring in an advantage and a disadvantage. They make the insanity of that and the gaslighting and all that very obvious very quickly, so it's easier to see it. But they also much more restrictive than other cultures, where say it's more common to travel, to explore, to move out of your own comfort zone. Yeah. So guys, I have to come to an end here, but I want to honor all of you guys coming here and all your guys' inheritance. When it comes to collective gaslighting, all I really wanted you to become aware of is how much you are manipulated, even though you think you're not, and how much of that you actually carry within yourself, and how some of these aspects can pull you in to some of the stereotypical stuff that is actually played out in your society, and also all of us together as human species. Okay, how we need to liberate ourselves out of these confines by connecting with our heart, by connecting with our own soul self, individuating our sense of self, our truth, and our power, and reclaiming this. All right, so this is really the message that I wanted to get across to you here today. I hope you liked it. I'm going to see you next Sunday again for Sunday Truth Talk. And as always, I'm going to be reflecting on current energies. So I'm going to pick a subject, but if you would like me to talk about something specific, please let me know here in the commentary. Share those videos and subscribe to my email list if you want infographics, or if you want to get articles and so forth that go a little deeper into these things. Thank you very much. Love you guys. Bye-bye.